I'm 27 years old and self-employed. I have a wife the same age who works in an office. Although we don't have children yet, work in our relationship was going well. Our nightlife has been a bit lacking lately, and we only go out a few times a year. That's about the only thing I'm a little dissatisfied with. Well, after 4 years, this is what it looks like, so I thought I was happy. One day after dinner, I was playing a phone game with the TV left on. As usual, my wife was taking a bath. As the 7 p.m. news was playing on the TV, I received a phone call on my wife's phone. That was not unusual. My wife was well taken care of, so she was adored by the junior staff at the company. They came to her for advice and often invited her out for drinks. Of course, I don't look at her phone, and my wife doesn't care, so she leaves her phone there. But there was something wrong with that incoming call. Normally, the phone rings several times and then stops immediately, followed by a few incoming email tones. Today, the ringing just won't stop. I couldn't help but be curious, so I looked at the screen, and the text showed that it was from her manager. Thinking that it may be something important, I decided to inform my wife. I went to the bathroom and called out to my wife. "It looks like there's a call from the company. It's really important." My wife tilted her head and said, "I wonder what it could be. Would you mind telling them I'll call back?" I was told to go back to the room and tap the call button. As soon as the call was connected, the manager on the other end started talking. "Oh, Mary, it's me." The speaker is a man with a high-pitched voice. Mary is my wife's name. It didn't appear to be a wrong call. I decided to convey my wife's message despite feeling confused. "Hello, this is Mary's husband. I apologize, but my wife is currently taking a bath, and I will have her get back to you shortly." The other person gulped in surprise and said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And just like that, the phone call was disconnected immediately. It seemed like he was a really frank person. Is that what a workplace boss is like? It left a strange feeling. After a while, my wife came out of the bath and changed her expression after looking at her smartphone. "What did he say?" she asked. "Nothing in particular," I replied. I continued, "It may be urgent, so call him right back." My wife seemed impatient. "Yeah, it's fine," she said without making any attempts to call back. My feeling of discomfort swelled. Despite having something nagging at me, it was time to go to bed, so I headed to the bedroom. As I was laying down to sleep, suddenly my wife asked for intimate contact. No way, this is definitely suspicious. I politely declined. "Sorry, I have an early morning tomorrow." My wife stopped asking, and I went to sleep with a sense of unease. A few days later, I decided to visit a private investigation agency and requested an investigation for marriage infidelity. I wanted to do something about the lingering discomfort that wouldn't go away, and I thought that if I found out there was nothing after having a professional investigate, I would be relieved. However, after 2 weeks of investigation, my wife's infidelity was discovered. It was all very black and white. Her lover was 40 years old. He was the head of the same department at our company, and, of course, they had a physical relationship. There were many photos of the two of them being affectionate, and their actions in the car were also recorded. There was a recording of their conversation. My husband is so boring. Even though he makes a lot of money, he just keeps saving and saving. It's like he's an idiot. I want to divorce him after getting some money," I heard my wife say. The interloper started speaking. "Let's get married after you get divorced," he said, and my wife agreed happily. "Is that okay? Great. I'll share the money with you after I get a lot of it." I was so sick of listening to it that I was nauseous. We had talked about saving the money for when we have children in the future. Did the affair make her forget everything? After just barely making it to the bathroom to throw up, I made up my mind. I'll get a divorce. But it's not just about getting a divorce. I'll make them regret it so much they'll never forget. And the day of execution arrived. As my wife, who was unaware of everything, left for work, I quickly packed my belongings. At the same time, I had a locksmith replace the key of the entrance, and then I left the apartment building. I put a copy of the report from the private detective and a letter in the mailbox downstairs, and moved to the new place I had prepared in advance, and then I sent my wife an email. "There's a letter in the mailbox, so email me once you've made the preparations according to it. By the way, the content of the letter is as follows. After reading this, do not meet the lover until the following preparations are made. Only communicate through email and do not erase anything. Prepare the divorce and marriage certificates and bring photo ID when you two come to meet me. If you lie, I will never forgive you." That day, my phone kept ringing with incoming calls and texts. It was so loud that I turned it off that night. Perhaps they went home and realized they couldn't get in. My wife's parents have already passed away, and there is no family home. She has to either stay somewhere else or go to the other man's place. Since the private investigator is still investigating, her movements can be tracked no matter where she goes. And 3 days later, the long-awaited email arrived from my wife. "I've prepared, so please meet me." I called my wife and asked her to fill out the paperwork. My wife responded, "Hello? Where are you?" she shouted, but I ignored her. "Listen carefully, because I won't say it again. Come to the front of my apartment building 1 week from now. If you don't follow the instructions in the letter, I will cut off all communication. Regardless of whether or not you follow my instructions, I will cut off communication. Got it?" And before my wife could say anything, I hung up the phone and set the phone to reject her calls. On the promised day, my wife was outside the apartment with a man in a suit. When they saw me, they both lowered their heads at the same time, but I ignored them and said, "I'll unlock the door first. Come after me in a little bit." And then I left the two dejected people and got on the elevator. I didn't like being crowded into the small space with two people. Later, I opened the house with a new key and started recording after getting the consent of the two. When I asked my wife to check her smartphone first, she handed it over obediently. I compared the content of the affair on the smartphone with the documents from the private detective agency and confirmed that it wasn't erased and returned the smartphone. From the content of the emails, I could infer that the two had been meeting after I left home. I found that the letter's instructions had been torn up, but I didn't say anything specific. Next, I said, "Put out what you brought." Then my wife, who had been silent until then, frantically said, "Wait a minute, let me talk." I replied coldly, "I don't want to talk, just get it out," I said, and the other man spoke as if interrupting. "I'm truly sorry. Please, could you at least listen to what I have to say?" To which I coldly replied, "I have nothing to tell you." And still ignoring the man, I told my wife to prepare the divorce papers and the marriage certificate. As it was not written yet, I pushed it to the edge of the table. "Right," I said. My wife responded, "Wait a minute, please listen to me. No. And even though she was crying and wailing, my feelings didn't move at all. Nothing will change. I know everything. Just write it down quickly. The conversation can't progress otherwise. But my wife was just crying and wouldn't sign. I sighed deeply and said, "If you don't sign it, I'll leave. If you want to stay here, you can. I can't give you the keys though." Without any alternatives, my wife, who has come to accept it, signed the divorce papers and the marriage papers while crying. After making sure it was filled out properly, I called the interloper and sat him down in front of the form. Then he pushed away the marriage certificate. "Write your name here." The interloper went pale and seemed panicked, shouting loudly, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean it." I told the flustered interloper to quickly sign it. "If you don't do it, I'll have to report it to your company." Hearing that, the man frantically filled out the marriage documents. I took the divorce papers that were on the table and told my wife, "I'll submit this tomorrow, so make sure to report the marriage registration after half a year when you can remarry again." My wife was embarrassed. "Only at that time." They started making a fuss, but I know it was all lies. I picked up the marriage certificate I had filled out and pushed it at the interloper. "Please submit this," I said, and he responded, "I didn't mean to do it," he said, still making a fuss. I played the damn recording and said, "Isn't that just what you wanted?" I turned to my wife and continued, "If you do as I say, I won't need any compensation. I'll even give you this apartment. There's still a loan on it, but..." Then the interloper changed his expression. "What? We can have this place? And no alimony?" I sighed again as I looked at the lover who seemed pleased. "No, that's wrong. That's a condition for my wife. I'll be asking for compensation from you." Then the man responded, "You tricked me," he said angrily. I was neither angry nor sad, only dismayed. How can you say such a thing after having meddled with someone's wife? I won't sue my wife for alimony, so it will be a little easier once you get married, right? I then told the interloper that his fee would be $50,000. "I can't pay this kind of money. It's a ripoff." The interloper made a fuss about it. I went a little crazy thinking, this isn't a nightclub. "If you say it's too expensive, I can take you to court. I don't mind. But if we go to court, I can't just not tell your company." Then the interloper, fearing that his company would find out, reluctantly agreed. I further told him, "Please make the payment in one lump sum. I don't want to be associated with you in any way." Then the middle-aged man muttered, "Then you shouldn't have to ask for compensation." Hearing this, I stopped recording on my voice recorder and said, "Then, are you going to die? I really want you to die in front of me. I'm saying that I'll forgive you if you provide the money, so please, not in gratitude." Seeing my expression like that, the young man turned pale and shook his head. I kept talking. "I don't want to die. I don't want the company to know. I don't want to pay the money, so how are you going to take responsibility for this?" "I'll pay for it," my wife, who had been quiet until then, said while stepping in between me and her lover. She looked straight at me and said, "Until now, you have always listened to my whims and been kind to me. We were able to live a comfortable life and had fun, but I hate you for being like this, chasing someone to their wits' end." And then she continued indifferently, "I'm really sorry for cheating on you, but I want to be happy with this person. Thank you for everything until now." With those words, everything became meaningless to me. Do as you like. And so, without any alimony, the divorce was established with a condition that the condominium would be transferred to my wife and there would be no property distribution. And 1 year after all the procedures were completed, an email came from my former wife. "We got married," it said, and to my surprise, they even had a child, and it was written that there were even children involved. Finally, the two of them got married. I had been waiting for this moment. The next day, I sent an email to my wife saying, "Congratulations." I also enclosed evidence of the unfaithfulness committed by the person who was previously her lover and is now her husband, since even before our divorce and up until the present, he has had multiple affairs. There were women from the workplace and women who worked at nightclubs. It seems that he also contributed various things to all of them. My ex-wife, who knew nothing about it, married such a lousy man. Even after the divorce, I regularly requested the services of a private detective, and then I sent the evidence to my ex-wife. She must have seen the attached files, and soon after, she sent me emails saying, "Please don't contact me," many times. I ignored the emails because I didn't want to get involved any further. If she wanted to know more, she should go to a private detective herself. She betrayed me and wanted to marry her lover. I wanted her to know everything, accept it, and spend the rest of her life with him. But the emails from my wife continued from then on. Dozens of emails arrived every day, and when I glanced at them, they were apologizing or blaming me. I was sick of it and thought about changing my address, but before I did, I decided to take one more look. I went to my former home and quietly put evidence of the man's infidelity in the post box. Just then, I heard my ex-wife's angry voice from behind the wall. "Please tell the truth." The soundproofing is supposed to be solid, but the loud voices could be heard well from outside. In addition, some kinds of violent noises could be heard. I sent an email to my ex-wife. "I put the truth about your husband in your post box, so use it well. By the way, I sent it to all the relevant parties, so just do your best." Then I left the scene and immediately changed my email address. Of course, I sent the same thing to their workplaces, the person he's been having affairs with, and their parents. I was quite relieved. This is the end of my revenge. After a while, I got a new girlfriend. After the divorce, I was completely lifeless and just living. Of course, I put on a fake smile at work, but it still seemed to worry many people around me. She was one of the employees at my store who worried about me. Half a year after the divorce, she came over to my house out of concern. My room was quite messy, and I hadn't even thrown away the garbage. She cleaned the room without complaining, and even cooked for me. I talked to her about the details of the divorce. I cried while talking seriously to her, someone who listened to me. She cried too. I was happy that she cried for me. After that, she continued to take care of me. When I slowly regained my senses and regained a human-like life, she confessed to me her love. I declined, saying, "I'm happy, but I still can't feel that way," but she nodded. "I want to be around you, even if it's not as a lover," she told me. After I had taken my revenge on my ex-wife and her lover, I finally mustered up the courage to confess my feelings and start a relationship with her. Our relationship was peaceful, and I could see that my wounds were slowly healing. Then one day, while on a date with her, I heard a voice calling my name. When I turned around, I saw that it was my ex-wife calling me. I didn't want to see her anymore, so I tried to run away, still holding my girlfriend's hand. My ex-wife chased after me, yelling something. The situation was unusual, and I knew I had to run away to protect her. My girlfriend stopped me, letting go of my hand, and faced my ex-wife. "Hello, are you the ex-wife?" she asked with a smile, completely unfazed. My ex-wife stunned, muttering something like, "Who's this woman?" But my girlfriend ignored her and said cheerfully, "Why don't we go somewhere and talk slowly?" And we ended up going into a private room at a nearby coffee shop. My ex-wife didn't say anything. I didn't know what to say either. My girlfriend was the only one who broke the awkward silence. Why did you chase after me? I wanted to talk, she said. My ex-wife told me that as a result of her confronting her lover with the evidence I left behind, he had fled and was now missing. She apparently had a bitter fight with her lover's other partners and ended up settling the matter through mediation. I said that the evidence would be useful, I thought to myself. Even if you want a divorce, there's nothing you can do if your husband runs away. She said she was now living alone in her apartment, dealing with work and child-rearing every day. I was fed up with my ex-wife, who talked as if she had just burst into a fit of coughing. When you're divorced, you're a stranger, and it's none of my business anymore. I wanted to go home as soon as possible. I was about to say that, then my ex-wife said, "Please, I want to go back to the old days. I realize that you are the best. I will never cheat on you again. I'll even quit my job." And then she said something even more outrageous. "My child is so cute. He looks just like you." I was speechless. This can't be real. It's been a year since our divorce, and she gave birth to a child. There's no way that child is mine. Feeling fear, I froze, and she opened her mouth. "Don't worry about it. This person is dating me now." My ex-wife cut off her words and looked at her. "I have heard everything about what happened from this person. I understand that he is in pain now, but do you know what this person was like after the divorce was finalized?" She continues matter-of-factly. "It was as if he were alive but dead. He wasn't even eating properly. I couldn't leave him alone, and I found myself falling in love with him. He was unreliable in some ways, but you know that he was extremely kind." My ex-wife was depressed. "You brought this situation on yourself by betraying such a kind person so easily. I would never go against the path of someone like you. I will never give him to you either." Finally, she took my hand and stood up, as if to shout, "Let's go." Nodding at her words, I stood up and looked down at my ex-wife. I want to make it clear. I don't care about you. I don't care if you're happy or unhappy. I don't want anything to do with you for the rest of my life. Then I gave my trembling ex-wife an ultimatum. "Why do you think I didn't ask for alimony? It's because I was really disappointed in you. I didn't want the money paid by a dirty person." Then she and I left. "You did your best." I apologized to her, who was laughing, with, "I'm sorry for involving you." She hugged me silently. Now, the two of us live happily. In fact, she even confessed to me today that she's pregnant. I jumped for joy and proposed to her. She nodded happily. When things become more stable, I think I will visit her parents to say hello. They may get angry because I didn't get their permission, but I will get down on my knees and ask for forgiveness. From now on, I will really forget about the past and try to love my wife and children in a positive way. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. We look forward to seeing you again. Please also subscribe to the channel.